Hello, adoptive families and adoptive parents. My name is Brooke Fremouw. I'm an adoptive mom to 11 beautiful, amazing, incredible children. And I'm also a certified trauma support specialist that specializes directly in adoption trauma, in utero, right, post-birth, and certainly secondary trauma caused by kiddos coming into the home that are trauma-exposed kids. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to talk to you today about why first-time obedience rarely, if ever, do I say that? Do I dare say that? If ever works in adoptive homes. You know, it was an interesting thing. As a younger person, when we first brought home our first adopted kiddos, we were at church and our kids were in the preschool classrooms at church on Sunday, Sunday school classes. And first time obedience, it's the first time that I heard that term. You guys familiar with it? Maybe you don't know what it's called, but you've seen it in action. So let me describe it. It's like this. Little Johnny, go put your shoes away. And then little Johnny slides off the couch, waddles over to his shoes, grabs his shoes, runs to his bedroom all excited, puts his shoes on the shoe rack, claps for himself, and comes back. And Daddy's like, "You're awesome. High five." Yeah, that's first time obedience. Has that ever happened in your adoptive home? I know for us, it didn't happen. And for sure, I felt like I was an oddball out. Like, wait a minute, this is what families are supposed to expect? It literally is that I say jump, you say how high mentality, right? Like, Daddy spoke, Mommy spoke, obey. Go do what you've been asked to do. And some kids actually do that. No kids that I know, but some kids actually do that. And I think back to when I was a kid, that was the expectation. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I'm rearing my children in a Christian home, but I was raised in a home where authority was authority and you do what is asked when it is asked, no questions asked, right? And so I thought I was going to raise my beautiful little kiddos. Don't even start me on the tweens that came in and the teenagers that we adopted, right? That's totally, but it applies. First time obedience is not a thing. So I felt like, gosh, the world doesn't get me. What am I doing wrong? And guess what the answer was? You need to spank them. Okay, so let me play this out in my head. I have this little human that's already been separated by the one person in this world that gave them life, that they didn't do anything. They were out of control with that situation. And they already have deflated self-image, feel like a baby thrown out with bathwater in an unconscious, subconscious way. And now when I ask this child to put away their shoes and they're processing through that and what the pros and the cons of obeying that look like, I'm supposed to go and smack them and tell them, stop thinking, react, do what I'm telling you to do. And that's supposed to make my situation better. Have you guys tried it? Has it made it better? Let me ask you this actually. If you have tried it when the kids were little and you tried physical discipline or sticking them in timeout because they didn't obey the first time that you asked, where are they now as tweens or as adolescent teenagers? What do you see in them? And where does what you see come from? And I'm not saying that it comes from the spanking. Certainly there's a time and a place, and I'm not here to debate whether spanking is right or wrong. I am here to explain why our kids do not do that. And that they've got a good reason. It's kind of like if I were to go to one of my Ethiopian kiddos, who Ethiopians tend to be on the shorter side. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that until I'd been to Ethiopia and then fell in love with a bunch of Ethiopians. They tend to be on the shorter side. It's like if I were to go to an Ethiopian and say, by tomorrow morning, I expect you to be 2 inches taller. Is that a fair thing to ask from one of these people? No, it's not. It's beyond their control. And what I am suggesting to you is that adoption trauma in itself is trauma that changes the way that the brain processes, okay? And if that adoption trauma, if they weren't placed at birth, and that wasn't the only trauma experience that they had, if you don't know what I'm talking about with that, I highly recommend, by the way, the book Primal Wound. Primal Wound. It's real thin. It's a easy read, but it'll really help you understand the science and the evidence for trauma that's caused by happy, mutually agreed to adoptions. Still trauma involved, guys. We don't want to think that there is, but there is. So, not just including that, but a lot of us have kids that have trauma from neglect, abuse, abandonment in their childhood, right? And if that's the case, they've got even more layers of the change that's taken place in the way in which they process and in the way in which they think. Now, I'm going to give you just a really short version because I don't want to overwhelm you with science, but the reality is we have a thinking brain and we have a reacting brain. The thinking brain, the thinking brain is up here. And the thinking brain is where we wish our kids spent most of their time. But emotion is carried in this reacting brain, and it's called the amygdala, and it's an emotional memory bank. So, I want to give you an example. Let's go back to little Johnny. Little Johnny is habitual about leaving his shoes out. Every single day, he comes home from his little developmental preschool and drops his backpack by the front door and marches over and grabs a cheese stick, hops up on the couch and throws his shoes on the carpet. And you feel like you are just repeating the same thing every day. Every day. Johnny, shoes. Shoes. Johnny, please, shoes. Right? What happens is Johnny knows that he's done something that is not approved, that he has forgotten once again to put his shoes away. So when you remind him that shoes are out, automatically he starts to shift from his thinking brain to his emotional brain. And he goes, oh gosh, I screwed it up. I did the wrong thing. And so his thinking brain shifts, the switch goes off, and then you look at Johnny and the look is like, oh gosh, I'm busted. I'm not good enough. Oops. What do I do? And now behaviors start to manifest. Because I call it a toxic cocktail in my teachings, but what it is, it's endorphins, adrenaline, hormones, insulin changes, all taking place because an expectation was put on him. He already knew that he didn't meet the expectation ahead of time, and he's not really sure that he can do better than that. So what happens is he's no longer thinking, he's reacting. So maybe he ignores you. And you're like, Johnny, shoes. Put your shoes away, buddy. All right, listen. Right? You're like, oh, I have asked nicely. Right? And I was like, oh, fine. Gets up, storms over, grabs his shoes, walks it, opens his bedroom door, and throws the shoes on the ground, and then says, stupid. And you're like, what was that? Unacceptable. That is not putting your shoes away, and you do not use your mouth like that. And so this little thing of putting your shoes away has become this big explosive incident in which you're like, what is going on here? Oh man. If we could just have first-time obedience, wouldn't our lives be different? Really, it's comical because it doesn't exist. It literally is like a unicorn or a Pegasus, or I guess dinosaurs existed. That's a bad example, but fairies, right? Like it literally doesn't exist in my house and never has because I only have adopted children. And adopted children sit back here. And what happens is they feel like a failure. They feel disappointed. They feel the weight of expectation. And therefore, everything that ever felt the same way, when their teacher gave them a dirty look, when their biological mom that ended up physically abusing them raised her voice, it meant he was going to get a beating. So now he's not even reacting to the shoe environment anymore. He's not reacting to the ask that lies ahead. The situation has grown and it's not here, it's here. But what do we often do? We say behavior, behavior, behavior. These behaviors are unacceptable. So we need to change these. We need to change the ignoring, the tantrum, the naughty mouth, the throwing the shoes in the bedroom. And so we're going to come with more expectations and expect that as we bring more expectations or more heightened discipline, that somehow they're going to fall out of their emotion and come back to their brain. When I say that, doesn't that sound illogical? Right? You're like, wait, that's really what's happening? That's what's happening, right? And so we can't teach a child who's back here. We've got to wait for them to get back to their thinking brain in order that we could teach them. And here's the fundamental big issue with us adoptive families. Some of our kids don't know how to be here. They literally have sat back here for so long because of the environments that they were in prior to us that this becomes normalized and this feels weird and uncomfortable. So they create the chaos that keeps them back here, right? So that's a whole nother tangent, a whole nother session between you and I. But the reality is, guys, is we've got to be patient when we put an expectation on a trauma kid. It doesn't mean erase expectations from their life. They'll never function in society, in school, or in a family if we just erase the expectations. That is not the answer. But being patient through those expectations and understanding that there are some chemicals that are shifting, that are playing into this, and being okay with a calm ask, instead of a hard demand. Allow yourself to lower your authority as long as they're willing to comply, right? Now, in my instruction with my clients, we build off of that. We build off of how to get your kids to do what you want them to do, but not react, to respond rather than react. And there are systems that I use. There are reasons for the systems, understanding what's going on from that physiological aspect of the child and what they've been through, and the ways that their brain has changed because of it, right? I teach that. That's part of what I was doing when I was working one-on-one with clients. I actually took my last one-on-one client just a couple of weeks ago. And so if you're following me on Facebook, you will see her engaging. She's like, oh my gosh, this is transformational. And I so appreciate her attaboys. But it is, guys. Like when I learned what I was doing through traditional parenting strategies were hurting my children and keeping them stuck back here, it was a night day, like, whoa, aha moment for my husband and I. And making those adjustments has led to a much more peaceful household. The great news is that I'm not doing one-on-one anymore. What I am doing moving forward is actually creating life-changing results in your house. Getting your kids to where they respond instead of react, to where you're speaking the language that they need you to speak in the ways in which they need it, through systems, activities, videos. I've put all of my instruction together into an 8-week course, and I could not be more excited because at the end of the day, guys, this is peace for your family. This is choosing to keep our kids at their highest point of potential, which is right up here, right? Our kids, they tend to fall behind in school. Why? Because they're back here so often. They struggle with peer connections. Why? Because they're back here. We got to get our kids up here. Got to get them up here. And once they figure out how to do that and see that there's a payoff in it, you've got to reward them choosing that. I teach you guys how to do that. Once that is in place, transformational peace. That peace that surpasses all understanding, that joy unspeakable, guys. It is possible for your home, no matter how far unwound your home is. Before, I was private pay, insurance, no, and people would contract with me out of desperation and find their peace. What I'm saying now is it's a fraction of the price, it's on your time schedule, and you get the same peace, joy, get to love parenting again, get to actually love and look forward to things like vacations. Things like holidays, right? Like what? You can actually like those? Yes, you can. You can. So if you are interested, down below in the description, there's a link for a strategy call. Go ahead, log on, book that strategy call. Let me know the things that you've tried, where you're at, the hardships that you are in, and if this program is a fit for you, my 8 weeks journey university, if that's a good solution for you, I will let you know, and we can just go from there. Cool? The other thing is, I'm in the process of developing it. I'm on week 2 of development, and therefore, official launch date, May 28th. Between now and May 28th, massive discount for those who are ready to pre-enroll. So if that's you, make sure that you reach out. I am here for you. And hopefully what you learned today about first-time obedience is going to help you to stand in a place of being patient while little Johnny's figuring out what to do with those shoes. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic day.